like a lot of money. Why don't you just say $5 million a year for 10 years, and $5 million at $200,000 a unit gets you 25 units. It will take 240 years to build 6,000 units at that rate. I'm not excited when I hear numbers like that. When Ted McMeekin came a little while ago to make an announcement, press release, $5.85 million for housing along the LRT line. And it was like a big to-do. Well, $5.85 million gets you 29 units. One building alone, they lost 21. And there's going to be 80 buildings expropriated. So $5.85 million just doesn't cut it, doesn't do very much. Anyways, I think I'm going to run out of my 3 minutes quite quickly. I've got so much to say. We've got problems with mountain accesses, with the link, QEW, the congestion that's there. We've got problems with green box recycling. Now the blue box, there's a lawsuit for $20 million. We've got algae in Hamilton Harbor. And the problem there is our sewage treatment plant cannot handle all the effluent, and so when that happens, it gets dumped in the harbor. The LRT is not something that we need. I don't know if you know that, but it's only going to replace 18 B-line buses. The other buses are going to continue to run because the stops are too far apart. Okay, and the B-line buses cost $1.8 million to operate, and they're going to put a train in that's going to cost $40 million to operate. 40 million in 30 years, we're talking $1.2 billion. There's so much you can do with $1.2 billion. We're talking the operating cost, not the $1 billion that is slated for the project. If you got access to that as well, you can have excellent bus service throughout all the municipalities, tying in water down Pembroke, Lambert, and all of that, and still have $400 or $500 million for housing.
Our next candidate is Kevin Gray. Please.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Dundas Works for setting this up. I'd also like to thank and applaud all of you for coming, because as much as I have an interest to make a difference in this town, in this region, you do as well, which is why you're here, and that's very exciting to me. My family and I have lived in this region for 20 years. We've been in Dundas for 14 years. We previously lived in Coketowns. We lived rurally. We had a hobby farm just outside Ancaster in Grant County. So I'm familiar with what the different changes are between living in residential, rural, and farming, which is what this ward now brings to the table. I'm married with 4 children. 2 of my kids are here tonight, thank you very much. My 2 older children are both married. I've got 2 grandchildren. They live up on the mountain. My older daughter lives up in Freelton, in Flamborough, so it's exciting that she's in my ward. My background is finance and business. I've run restaurants my entire life. I run a recruiting company right now. And this role as council has a large financial impact, a large financial knowledge. I've always wanted to see somebody in a leadership role in business take a political role, because it's just hand in hand. Why am I up here? I'm looking to make a difference for our community. I'm looking to make a difference for our community, by our community. I fully believe it has to be an interactive role. It's not just Kev making decisions and not listening to our community. That doesn't work. I know that doesn't work because that's how things are currently. I'll explain shortly. I'm tired of reckless spending by council. I'm tired of the tax and spend mentality. Our taxes, our hard-earned dollars. There's way too much of a focus on the core. We're our own region out here. We're not just a ward. We're part of Hamilton. Past amalgamation. We need to be heard. We need somebody to stand up and make us heard. Work with the community to gather ideas, formulate a good idea, and move forward. I'm tired of taxes going up compared to Burlington and Oakville. I'm tired of unresponsive councillor not seeking out ideas and supporting our community. I was at a community meeting last night because there's changes going on at University Plaza, where the Metro is leaving. There's a Canadian Tire coming in. A group of residents over there had contacted our local councillor 6 months ago, and it was unresponsive until last night. That's unacceptable. Not as a potential candidate, as a resident and taxpayer of the city. I want to make that change. There's a 10-bay auto center going in there, I'll talk about later. There's financial changes that are coming to this city that I want to put my hand up and say, no one knows due, and yes, when we all think yes is due. My role is a representative to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And finally, last speaker is John Roberts.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you to Dundas Baptist for inviting me. I know I'm the candidate from out of town. I've lived here, my name is John Roberts. I'm a longtime resident of West Florida. I've lived here over 45 years, and I'm proud to say I attended Highland Secondary School. I've decided to run for Ward 13 Councillor because I'm ready to see a change in the Dundas and West Florida area. I believe we need someone who is local, someone who knows our community, and can be our voice. And I can be that person. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so those are the opening statements for the candidates. We'll now move on to the questions that we prepared. We have the first question, please.
Question 1 is on development. The built and natural character of our community is very important. Development often seems profit-centric, disrespectful of the current bylaws, and out of context with the neighborhoods they affect. How will you ensure that residents have a strong say in how the entire community, core and neighborhoods, is developed?
To remind the candidates, they have two minutes to answer these questions. The first person to respond is Kevin Gray.
Hey, I know that guy. This is a very exciting situation, question, because I'm going to speak back to my meeting last night with the local residents. We were blindsided by this change of Metro going into University Plaza. Development in our ward is key. We've got a very special town here that we all love. We've got a core that needs to be preserved. There's a heritage feel here. There's a trust feel in this community. With change, we need to be engaged. I promise to engage with communities. Last night, we learned where there was no civic engagement from a representative or from the city. That's a big hurdle that needs to be addressed. This is not an isolated incident. There's development all across the city that people are blindsided by. There needs to be more conversations going on with the local councillor. There needs to be more conversations going on with our planning department at the city. We need to connect with different staff within the city. So we're all on the same page. There's such an us and them mentality right now that needs to be eliminated. I will work tirelessly on that. I will tell you, I don't say tirelessly jokingly. I was up last night, I couldn't sleep. It was driving me nuts that these residents had gone unaddressed for 6 months. That could be me. These people have a beautiful neighborhood just behind the University Plaza. There's conservation lands. They love their homes. They put their love and their life into it, their families. Now they're going to have a 10-bay auto park meters from their door. That could be my house. That could be your house. I will work with each and every resident. I will keep a strong communication back and forth with the city so we can preserve what we need to preserve. Development is happening. We need to look at affordable housing. We need to look at finances and what's right for our city. I'm not going to have that dictated by the city. It will be accepted by the residents, us, and this town. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Kevin. The next speaker is Pamela Mitchell. Pamela, please.
Yes, I love Dundas, and I love the conservation area, the Spencer Creek, and I want to keep the nature. There's no way that I will allow developers to take that land and build condos or build whatever they want just because the monopoly board, their bag of money, like that little guy coming to City Hall, here's my money, take it, and they go, Hey, forget the people, we'll take your money, that's just as good. Yep, there you go, got the certificate, hey, you're digging and on your way, who cares? No, no, Pamela don't do business that way. I listen to the people and I say no to those Donald Trumps that want to build condos 40 feet high, 20 floors. Look at CHCH, that's a disaster happening. Our fire department, look at 9/11 for an example. They put people, they put our fire department, they put everybody in danger. They are not wanted in Dundas. And I will listen to the people, and I will sit at City Hall, and I will debate this as long as the day, and I'll keep coming back and keep coming back on your behalf, and I'll put a stop to these Donald Trumps. We got enough condos here in Dundas. We don't need any more. We need affordable housing. The Star, the Toronto Star, it's all over. 1,000 something. People want to move. We don't want people to move. We want better housing laws and regulations. And I will stand up with the government and I'll debate these and say we need caps on housing. They can't be raised 1,400 so that the next person comes in, the landlord goes, I'm going to raise that 2,000.
Okay, thank you, Ben. The next speaker is John Petition. John, please.
Development is probably the hardest thing a council has to deal with, and it's a no-win situation. And the worst situation of all is when people complain about it when the horse is already out of the barn. There's a process for every development. There's notifications that go out. And what's clear is it isn't working the way it currently works. The way they've designed it, there's too much dysfunction. Now, some of it we heard last night, because I was there as well, was that the councillor wasn't responsive. And she said she was. So now we got a he said, she said. And I don't know who to believe, but I'm willing to believe that, 6 months ago, if people complained and had something to say, there would have been a whole street load of them last night saying, why did it take 6 months, 4 weeks before an election to have this conversation? And she brought out 2 city employees as well. That was nice, but why not sooner? And there's a limit of what can be done by any councillor, because they're 1 out of 15 votes. But I think what we've said already, pretty loudly, some of us, is that we don't think we've had a loud enough, strong enough voice. Arlene's been very clear that she gets along with all the staff and they like her. But I'm going to suggest to you that's not the job of a councillor. The job of the councillor is have the staff get that they work for you. Councillors are only the intermediary. We're there to do your bidding. I would have more consultations, wider consultations, more notice than ever before. I'm interested in being your representative. I'm not interested in being here 4 years from now telling you all the great things I thought I did because I knew better. I want to be your representative. And with technology we have now, we have the ability to have wider, bigger, deeper conversations than ever before. And that's part of my approach to being with you and what I'd like to do around the topic of development.
Next speaker is John Roberts. John?
I believe that there's a fine line between preserving our inviting downtown core and the development of suitable infrastructure that remains with very strict guidelines. Dundas will eventually grow and expand. We have to make sure that it will adhere to specific guidelines such as height restrictions and preservation of green space. Development will happen, and we need to be ready for these guidelines to keep our town unique. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Following John is Arlene Vanderbeek. Arlene, please.
Can you turn me on? Can you turn my mic on? Is it on? Thank you. Okay. Development has been a part of Dundas as long as I've been alive. Things have changed, things have come, things have gone. I can tell you that I have worked in planning and development for 30 years. So I know the Planning Act, and I know our zoning bylaw, and I know what can be done and what can't be done. And the way that I can help is I can take my responsibility very seriously and tell you the truth. And that's what I do. I tell you where I can help and where I can't help. I tell you why I can't help. And that's because we as a city, as a community, have to obey the rules and the regulations. And so within those rules and regulations, if you don't know them, you think you can do everything, and I get that. But when you do know them, you know how to work with them. And you know what you can win at. And so, that's what I do. And don't tell me I don't engage. I'm sure there's many people in this room who've been at neighborhood meetings with me, or been at the town hall, or have asked them what they thought. And so I try to be as truthful as possible. And I try to do what I can to protect and preserve us. And so the design guidelines for Dundas were reviewed by a citizen group, and they went to planning last Tuesday. And that plan will be enacted. And at the same time, I have started a secondary plan for Dundas. And those two items are going to make a huge difference to the control we have over what happens in our town. And it's my pleasure to be able to do that. And I'm happy to be able to help people with reality. Thank you.
And next speaker is Casper Bonnemoe.
Well, one thing I love about Dundas is that small town feel. And I think it's important that we keep that, and as well as all the greenery that's around. So it's a pretty delicate issue on the development. I mean, one thing is, of course, the height restrictions. But also, we used to be really careful about the parking allotments, and I've seen that go out the window now, but they should be providing 1.5 spots per unit. That tends to keep the size of development down because they need to provide the proper spacing. I drive by Governor's Road and those the buildings that were built on the Beltran Foundry. It irks me when I drive by and it says no visitor parking. I go, I couldn't live there and think that nobody can come visit me because they have nowhere to put their vehicles. So I think that's been a problem, especially in Toronto. If they would have maintained 1.5 parking spaces per unit, it would have really cut down on the size of the units. It would have been further apart, and it helps. But the other thing is, I still don't understand why Parkside High School is going to be a cemetery. I think a cemetery is being outside of the city core, not within. I mean, that'd be a beautiful place for a recreational facility. We're right next to the park. You've got seniors that need a recreational facility, and that development, I still don't understand how that's going ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And the last speaker is Rich Gelder. Rich.
Thank you. I believe the original question involved development and citizen engagement. And we have had our share of that the last 4 years, haven't we? This community, Dundas in particular, above any other community, really knows how it wants its community to look. And that is everything from public laneways to buildings that do not obscure the view of the escarpment. So I want to take some heat off of the incumbent and give her a little bit of credit for attempting to broker a compromise. But at the end of the day, we are one OMB decision away from a 9-story building going up at 71 Main West that the community simply didn't want. And that's not the fault of the incumbent councillor. The fault is a lack of planning, a lack of a citywide strategy of development, of smart development, of targeted development. I believe that this type of dense development, large development, needs to be directed to the LRT corridor, and we need to incentivize that. We're seeing it happen already. That developers, if they are given a reason to go somewhere and put a high-rise dense development, we are seeing the proof that it is happening. And I believe that we are able to preserve our community, the aesthetic of our community, and the height restrictions here in Dundas. I look forward to the secondary plan and the height restrictions there. And if developers are going to be coming with grandiose plans that require variances, we need them to be bringing things to the table like affordable units as a function of inclusive zoning. And we need to have citizen input on that. And that citizen input should be in the form of regular town hall meetings and not just protests when after the horse is already out of the barn. If we create the right conditions citywide, if we reach out across ward boundaries and say to the other councillors, don't vote to have a 9-story building at 71 Main Street West. Understand what community looks like in Dundas. I think we can work together and get it done. Thank you.
Okay, we'd like to move on to question number 2, please.
Question number 2 is on affordability, defined as spending a maximum of 30% of one's total income on housing. Owning and renting has become increasingly unaffordable to many, including young singles and families starting out, seniors, and small independent businesses. How will you bring affordable options to Dundas and West Glenville?
We begin this time with Gasper.
Yeah, I think affordable housing is probably the number one thing that's happening in Toronto, Hamilton, everywhere. There just isn't enough affordable housing. The governments have to get together and create a pool of money to make it happen. The most expensive part when I look at development is the land. The city has opportunities on occasions to be able to get some property, and they need to capitalize on and look at how they can make it make good use of. For example, if they were going to build on Parkside, I think if they were going to build something that was geared for seniors, I don't think there'd be much protest. I think they probably wouldn't want something that was geared to income, but I think if it was meant for seniors, it probably would have been an okay use for part of it. We still have recreational components to that as well. So it's a desire to do it. It's not just going to happen. Like I say, the way I see it now, the city's